understood that like I was different and that there were just certain things that I don't stand for and that I don't like and things like that. But like I was super understanding of everything that they like and everything like that because that's kind of how black people always have to be when you're in like a white environment is that like everything that white people do you have to understand, but normally you have to understand why you do things different.
Hi, and welcome back to D1 on One. In this conversation, we get to talk with Elijah Mason. Elijah Mason is a thrower at University of Washington, and last year as a freshman, this guy was the Pac-12 champion. He then went on to play 7th at NCAA's, becoming a first-team All-American. In this conversation, we get to talk about Elijah's experience growing up without a father figure and consequently the roles that coaches played in his life. We then talked about his experience in the recruiting process, and lastly, we learned about his experience as a black athlete on a predominantly white campus. I really hope you enjoyed this conversation. But Pac-12 champ, and then went on that season to get 7th at NCAA's as a freshman. That is wild. And looking at the results, there's 5 of 6 guys in front of you graduating. So it sounds like, this year you're in the title hunt, which is wild as, sophomore. So I'm really excited to kind of hear about that. But,
Thank you.
To start, so let's get you talking. I've done enough, we got a little introduction. So I really want to hear where are you from? And, tell me what it's like growing up where you're from.
I am from Arizona. I was technically born in Washington, but moved when I was really young. Both my brothers were born in Arizona as well, so that's definitely like where I'm from. Kind of lived everywhere, but the majority of times I've spent in Arizona is in Casa Grande. It's kind of like the middle, you could say, between Phoenix and Tucson, and um, I never went to school out there, but that's just where I live. I kind of like got my whole life started and everything started when I moved to the Awatuki community. Uh, so I started middle school or started elementary school in fourth grade in that community. So went to Kyrene Del Milenio and um, right next to the community center, the Pecos Community Center, where I literally grew up. If it wasn't for sports, I was there every single day, all the way up until like my senior year of high school.
And so how exactly did you get into track from football or maybe just like in general?
Yeah. So yeah, I played football since like third grade or something. And football is definitely like my love. It's my first sport. And eventually I got into track because my middle school track coach, Coach Hansen, actually, he was also our PE teacher. And we just started messing around with track stuff. And I kind of fell in love with it. But at the time, it was a different love. I was still balancing the fact that I was big, but I had speed and like could jump and things like that. So that same person, the same PE teacher, was also my track coach in high school. Um, so that bond was just always there,
Mhm.
and he's like one of the best father figures I have today. Uh,
Amazing.
and it's also my throws coach in high school. My throws coaches, Coach Hickle and Coach France, are also like some of the best father figures I have today, and just the bond that I had at that school and the coaches and like they were a part of raising me. My throws coach, one of my throws coaches was also my football coach. He was a linebacker coach, a defensive coach. Um, he's been my guy since forever. So like that was a part of the reason why like I pushed through things because I couldn't let him down. Like he's vouched for me many times and like
Mhm.
I still couldn't to this day let him down if I wanted to. Uh, so he's one of like really important people in my life, and um, that kind of transitioned into track because after that season, when I tried to quit twice, but I only made that transition because of my coaches. So going back to what you were saying about how coaches like benefit or like shape the athlete, um, my mom is my father figure. So like men in my life haven't been uh, like a part of my family.
Mhm.
So like I have my uncle Troy, who is like probably my like first father figure. Um, but then the rest of my family all grew up in Indiana or all live in Indiana. So I only know my uncle because he's the only one that lives in Arizona with my mom. And outside of that, like because he lives in Tucson and we live in Casa Grande, but like we basically live in Phoenix. We only saw each other for like holidays or like sport events where like we ended up crossing paths and things like that, and started picking up more as we got older. Um, but when it was most vital, it was like we only saw each other like holidays and things like that. So my coaches ended up becoming like my immediate father figures, and I ended like I put those burden like that burden on them, but I always had amazing coaches, and started with Coach John Gould. I was my youth coach with Coach Willie, and they were like the first people that like really started shaping me. And then it went into Coach Hansen, and Coach Hansen then went into Coach Sarah and Ross Walker, to then um, uh, Coach Hickle, Coach France, Coach Klein, and her husband. Like just there was so many, and they're all still a part of like my family now. And like it just it like those are the kind of coaches that like really mold someone, and they check in on me all the time. They call me whenever they're in this area. Like they they're amazing, and like that's kind of like how a coach like really shapes an athlete.
Mhm. So going a little bit further then, so I know we had discussed this a little bit previously, but I didn't really get too much into it. But I'm curious, how like your college decision process went. Like, sounds like having a important or a coach that can really help you and like mentor you is something that you're looking for, and I think a lot of athletes are looking for.
Yeah.
I know my high school coach played like a really important role in my life, and that's sort of what I wanted to see in a college coach as well. So I'm curious about your whole process for deciding.
So I was certainly under recruited. I did all of my own recruiting, uh,
Really.
and I had all of the resources to help me. But like the moment that I was allowed to start emailing coaches, so my sophomore year, um, I was emailing, or was it junior year? I don't even remember when the year we were allowed to do it. But I emailed every football coach and every track coach in a D1 program in the country, and uh, like I was sending them film. I was like letting them know like how they can reach out to me and everything along those lines. But only a few schools did. Uh, so yeah, it would have been the start of my junior year, because I was sending them like my sophomore year tapes, and like sophomore year football tape was, I mean, all right. Like it was sophomore year football tape.
Mhm.
Um, and then my junior year, or my sophomore year, I threw 173 in disc, and like 52 in shot or something like that. Um, but I was also explaining to them, I was like, I hurt my hand my sophomore year, and that's the reason I still don't throw shot today. So I ended up having nerve damage from the injury that I got my sophomore year throwing shot, getting my name out there. And when only a few schools replied, once it was actually time where schools were starting to reach out to me, um, it was like too late. Uh, I signed as early as I possibly could. I signed November 9th or something like that um, of my senior year. And talking to my like high school coaches and my mom and everything like that, I committed to Bama. It Things didn't change for me until like 2 days, 3 days before signing day, and I didn't know where I was signing because I was certain I was going to Bama. But then once I actually tried to get my NLI, they were waiting for a guy named like Champion Allison um, to figure out what he was doing because he was doing a live signing between Bama and LSU. It sucks, but he's been injured for the last 3 years. Like, but they wouldn't let anyone sign until they figured out what he was doing. But they told me that my money was secure regardless of if he took his or not, because he was like on the junior team or something like that, and they were trying to give him a full. Um, yeah, and that's kind of when I started to learn about the business as well, and like I was really getting told like real facts that like have really helped me today with everything. But yeah, I was like, I'm going to Bama. Yeah, I know that its country is crap, and that the types of people that I might meet there are certainly going to make me upset. But it's definitely the kind of culture that I wanted to be in, and it's the type of program that I never saw myself being at. But that once I got the opportunity, I was like, this is really nice, and the people here really want to work, and it's Bama. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. Um, and then right before Coach Schutz, he never let up. He was always staying on my line. I was being super honest with him. I was like, look, I've committed to Bama, but like that's a commitment, and I'm not ready to like close the door on you. Like UW and Bama like were my last two. But then I was like, I don't feel the same kind of love that I'm getting from Coach Schutz, and like that's going to be like the first big sign for me because my high school coaches were extremely loving, and just a part of me even wanting to be good or to work hard is like a testament to my coaches. Like I don't want to let any of them down. They're willing to put their time into me, so I'm super willing to like see them happy and like for us to grow together, right? And I told my coaches and everything like that. They were like, that would be a much better fit for you. And they were like, everyone secretly didn't want me to go to Bama, and but they were so supportive of me that they were like, we'll see how it works because we could be wrong. But everyone secretly didn't want me to go there, and I was like, okay, and eventually made a decision to go to UW, and it's been great. It's literally the best decision I made. Yeah.
That's really cool. Yeah, I think a lot of high school athletes looking to compete in the college system, like it is a really tough decision, and I feel like a lot of times it ends up being not the right decision, which is why you see so many transfers, and that's even with the rules in place that make it harder to transfer, not really worth it. So on that note, I'm curious, like what advice would you give to athletes looking to compete in college, and like how to make the best decision for themselves?
Like my mom raised me extremely well to be resilient and to like look towards a future goal. And this whole process has just been looking towards the goal that I'm only here for. At the time, we were like we always just say we're only here for 4 years, but like it's really for me going to be 5 or 6. Um, uh, and that's going to set me up for so many greater years after that. And I don't have to be thinking that I'm going to stay here, even though that happens for a lot of people that way. I just knew that I was going to be going here to get set up in the right position to then go somewhere else. And the like advice I would give someone is exactly that, is that even though you go to school in a specific place, you don't have to be thinking about living there. And you also don't need to be thinking about exactly what that sports team is going to do for you if you lose both your legs, if you can no longer do something anymore. Is it somewhere that you are going to be happy? And is it somewhere where you're going to like find the right people that like are going to help you like become you, that you're going to find lifelong friends, and really just everything about you and you growing, but at the same time, you gotta just kind of do it, because
Mhm.
you're 18 when you're making this decision, sometimes 17 when you're making this decision, and it's not like you're gonna know all these things. Uh, but um, I've always kind of been accredited to having like an old soul, and it was easier for me to make this decision than a lot of other people, because I was able to look at it from a bunch of different avenues,
Mhm.
and I had good people behind me that were helping me. Even if they didn't know anything about it, they were just so open minded. They really helped me with this decision, um, and really choose a school with the intention to graduate, and like the complete intention to get your degree. Uh, and even if you do take the football route or the basketball route and you end up being like one and done or three and done, or I think they're changing the rule of football for two and done. So uh, even if you do end up going any of those routes, like have it be a school where in that short time that you're there, it's still somewhere where you can go back and be happy.
That's awesome. And I love it. Like things you've said, I know a lot of people are going to be very inspired. Like just hearing what you're saying, I'm like, damn, I love it. There's a lot of things I want to loop back to, but first, you mentioned that the environment of Seattle is it's not for you,
Yeah,
but yet you chose to come here for school. So I'm curious, like where do you want to end up after?
I could definitely see myself going back to Arizona. Um,
Mm.
I definitely like Texas, uh, but I'm definitely um, looking more to uh, have my kids grow up in an environment that is similar to how I grew up. And I just got lucky because my mom and like my uncle just knew how to do that like on their own, and I just got put in the right position with the right people, um, that like everything kind of just worked out for me. But I'm looking for definitely like an environment where, because I grew up in a church at the start of everything, and um, the more and more less black Arizona gets, and these certain environments get, I know I'm not going to be able to like take my children to a place like that and really have them kind of grow up in like the light that I feel is right. Um, so I definitely would like to be somewhere probably more Midwest, more East, but like the furthest west I could really see myself would probably be Arizona or Texas.
So you mentioned, this is a business, which definitely is. I'm curious how you can balance that with also having like a really strong team culture and also like even just maintaining strong relationships with people, like coaches, for instance, without like the influence of money.
Yeah. So um I know that like for me, being at UW was, or not as much anymore, but at the start was really hard as far as culture goes. I
Mhm.
didn't fit in with anyone, and I still really don't fit in with like my teammates. Uh, not from the same place or like the same things, except for like a few of us. So um, when you come to a school that you're like different at, for lack of better words, um, you end up just basically starting your own thing, and you end up bonding over your differences. So like me and my boy Yost couldn't be more different. Or, like that's like my boy on the team. Like we're completely from different sides of the world. But when I'm listening to music, he would just sit there and be like, "This is trash." And listen to music, I'll be like, "That's trash." But like that's like how our friendship is, and it's like a great friendship to have. Um, like we just end up having so many differences, but we can talk about just about anything when we have to be serious. But like it started off the fact that like they would do things that would just annoy the like life out of me, but then like I can do the exact same thing, and like it's just great in that way. So you end up you almost always end up creating a relationship with the people around you in some kind of way. Um, your coaches end up being the same way when you like really accept the fact that it's not personal, and that a lot of times, not a lot, all the time, it's a business decision. So, uh, like when it does actually get personal, yes, a business decision also backs that. So even when when it is personal, and you're like, the coaches really do take care of me, well, they can afford to take care of you, and it's because you're affording for them to take care of you. So it's like a smart business decision in that sense. Um, but like my coach, for example, like Nino, he can find anyone in the country and like convince them that they need to be at UW, because anyone could genuinely say like you can make a strong argument that you need to be at one of the best schools, like academically. So um like a lot of times coaches will recruit off of the fact that something that you're already interested is here, and that you were never even looking for like a full ride. And really only like money ever gets involved with people who are looking for like full rides, or like you're looking for that same type of scholarship that you would have gotten if you would have stayed with football, or if you would have stayed with basketball. But when you come to track, you're not dealing with that same kind of budget. And it's those types of people like myself as well, who like were like, whoa, I know I deserve that, and I know that I should have been getting this, and that like if I would have stayed with football, I would have easily had a full and everything like that, but you didn't, and like you didn't stay with basketball or anything like that, so you're dealing with a different budget, so you can't take it out on your coaches, because your coaches are going to like help you be the best that you could possibly be, but they had to make a business decision. So uh, when you can really start balancing that, like it's just not personal, that's really how you stay away from like having a bad relationship with your coach. um, because we have a great relationship at UW, and it's grown immensely since like my first time here, when they all just used to talk about the same thing and follow the same people. Literally throwing in like any bit of flavor, like when I came in, just like kind of reshaped it, and they still like have that old school flavor when I'm not there, but like when I am there, and we've kind of created our own thing, along with having a new coach, and new coaches just all around, it was pretty easy to just get along like super well with everyone like that. And especially when we got new coaches, I didn't know like any distance runners. I didn't know like anyone's last name. Like just didn't know people on the team. And especially with my redshirt year, like I didn't know anyone that year. And so last year I was still learning a bunch of people, and like I was like, who's that? And stuff like that. But when we got new coaches, the team really bonded. Like we really came together, and we were like, look, we're all going through this now. And because of an issue that happened with fifth years and Metcalf, uh, like all of us ended up getting like our worlds turned around. They were like, well, it'll be for the better. But at the time, none of us could see that. None of us wanted that. None of us even wanted to hear it. We're like, you're getting all of our coaches fired by getting the head coach fired, and or resigning. Um, and it's just like, it's not possible for all of us to sit there and be happy. So we ended up coming together really and just bonding really well over the same uh, problem that we were all having. So you almost always find a way to have uh, um, relationship with the people that you're around, when, especially in sports. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think going through the struggle together is one of the strongest bonding materials, really. It's one of the special parts of sport. So I love that. So you talked a little bit about, not like it didn't feel like it's a good fit for you, like culturally, and even now. I'm curious, did you know that going in? And like, if you didn't, like, do you have maybe like a story of like when you, like, of an example of like, oh shoot, this is not a good fit for me, like at UW?
Yeah. So going into UW, I honestly was shocked. Um,
Mm,
because in Arizona it's really white. And you do get like your certain places that you know you're good in and comfortable in and everything like that.
mhm,
Um, but like racism in Arizona compared to racism in Washington is much more blunt. Um,
mm,
but it's like it's still not the same as like other places, but it's much more blunt. Uh, so coming here, I knew that it would be less blunt. Um, but I was also expecting there to be more black people, honestly. I was expecting there to be more people that look like me and that I could talk to and things like that. But it was like the exact opposite. Like at least in the Seattle part of like this school, like this area, there's very little.
mhm,
And um, when I came here and was like looking for a place to be at, it was really hard to find one. And when I started meeting people and like asked them what they like and things like that, everyone kind of liked the same thing. Uh, like everyone's just feels extremely like, for lack of better words, like a frat boy. And like it's just not my crowd. So I definitely learned like just over time that I'm like, man, you guys are weird. Like uh, that's why like when I took my visit to Wazoo, it was completely different. It was like my visit to Seattle was definitely like um man, I like my word choice is not great, but it's the truth. And it's like soft. Uh
mm,
and you can't really speak or have your own opinions. You got to have the same opinion as the rest of the crowd. And uh you just got to like be a part of the same things that everyone else likes. And you got to like be eating vegan, and you got to be like just doing everything outside of like your comfort zone. But like it's almost so accepting that like you're not accepted in any sense, because everyone has to have the exact same likes. That is exactly why you're accepted, because everyone likes the same thing. So like on my visit to Wazoo, um, obviously where you went in the same state, uh, completely different. Like I went there, and my visit was we played basketball for 3 hours, and we went bowling and just had fun. We like danced, we listened to like music, like the music I listened to, and like we were just having a good time. Uh, but then like here, it's almost like the exact opposite. Like you would expect people to like solely listen to like country in the country, but like at UW, like I'm in arguments with my teammates about why we shouldn't be listening to country while we're lifting. Like it's just not possible. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like no one wants to listen to like bass and stuff like that. I'm like, but we're lifting. Like even if it was just instrumentals, like it would be great to listen to something upbeat, not like a slow guitar. And it's like it's kind of like everyone I ended up meeting out like in Seattle, unless they're like frat boys who like just jump around and like listen to like EDM. Uh,
mm.
so yeah, like it was definitely just completely different for me, and it still is. Uh, but like I'm managing with my people, and uh, like I have a good relationship with my teammates and stuff like that. And like I said, that's how we bonded. So yeah.
Super interesting. So also you mentioned a little bit ago too about your team kind of having a certain culture when you aren't there, but then like you kind of change it a little bit when you are there. So I was wondering, if you could just elaborate a little bit more on that, and like, because from what you just talked about, it kind of sounds like people are all kind of trying to like the same things, and you seem very independent and very articulate and well spoken, and like just from your high school days, you're kind of just stepping in there and stepping up, standing up for yourself, really. So I'm curious, if you could elaborate a little bit on maybe like your leadership role on the team, because that's what it really sounds like to me.
Yeah, so we definitely liked none of the same things when I first got in. Um, I didn't like the way that they decided to hang out, and I didn't like the way that, like I said, they were like having fun and like being friends and stuff like that. But once you start like really grinding with someone and creating that bond, you want to do everything that you can to make sure that everyone like feels comfortable and that everyone's in a good enough place. So like me and my boy Yost, um, or like even like Jonah and I are a lot more alike than like the rest of uh, the team, but like he's definitely started to find himself in like disperse into different avenues and stuff like that. But like Yost and I come from completely different places and completely different everything. Uh, and like now I can actually talk to him about anything. But like when I step into the scene and um, I'm looking for someone that I can also just talk to and be friends with and feel like included with, uh, they all understood that like I was different and that there were just certain things that I don't stand for and that I don't like and things like that. But like I was super understanding of everything that they like and everything like that because that's kind of how Black people always have to be when you're in like a white environment. Is that like everything that white people do you have to understand, but normally you have to understand why you do things different. But they took a completely different approach with that, and like they acknowledged it, accepted it, and we bonded from those things. So that was like the biggest difference, compared to like from my throwers group. I don't even if I was a distance runner, it probably wouldn't happen. But like throwers have always just been like linemen at heart, and even if it's like women, like when you just carry that lineman heart, like you're just like a loving person, like and you're willing to like work and put your head down and just like be that kind of like friend and stuff like that. So uh yeah, it hasn't I have not heard stories about it being the same way, like even just being a part of like Black student athletes at UW. Like when my other like buddies talk about their sports and stuff like that, it's not the same like inclusion and it's not the same everything like that. But we kind of just have such a good group that I just got, like I said, lucky that like I decided to come here and find these people.
That's really cool. Um, so I guess maybe transitioning a little bit. I was wondering, if you could talk a little bit about the role of faith in your life, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So grew up in the church, um, and it's all I know. I never like experienced life without God, and it's it's literally like been the biggest reason I am the way that I am now, and it's a really large part of how my mom molded me, and uh, I'm God fearing, and it's like that's the route that I decided to take, and um, I'm super thankful and blessed of like everything that has come my way, and uh, when when things get down, I have someone that I can always look up to, and uh, it's just like you're never truly alone with faith, and uh, even being out here by myself, and like I guess having a phone call to be with like my family, it's just not the same when uh like when I can just sit in a room completely by myself and still have someone to talk to. And that's been like really big part of like being by myself all the time, uh is just that I never like not have someone to talk to. And um like between like my friends and everything like that, like when you put God first and you understand that you have like your values and your morals and the things that you live by, those are the kind of people that I want to be around as well. um because they're looking to grow themselves, but they also know that there's more, and that it just kind of keeps people on the path that they want to be on. um yeah, like
That's
I
awesome.
ask that question a fair amount, but I don't even really know what to like say. Like almost like it's my faith is extremely faith driven, and that's because it's been applied to my life in a very strong way, and uh, it's just always something where like no matter what I'm doing, if like I pray like 3 times before I eat, and it's just like, but it's like it's habit. It's like I'm just always like looking to thank him and everything that like that happens in my life. Like I'm just it's always been there, and it's always been like a part. So like when people like find Jesus, it's completely different for me because
Mm.
it's always like he's always been there.
I'm curious, have you found like a good church and community you like at UW, like while you've been in Seattle?
No, and that is also like just like the stubborn side of me and like the picky side of me
Mm.
is that the way that I see God and like and everything like that is not the same way that white people see him, and it's definitely more scripture based, whereas mine is spiritual, and uh, it's directly applied to my life, like I said before, um, where I can pull up like reasons like why or like things why versus like the community out here can like basically know the Bible like it's like a math test. Like they can recite scripture just like that. I'm like, oh, I don't, I know, but I don't like
Mm.
I grew up in a church like that, but I don't. But like I like know people that know everything that you could ever like know about the Bible and interpret it in so many ways, but they've never prayed over their food. And you know, like I'm like, well, that is like substantial. Like they ask me what I'm doing when I'm like before I start eating. I'm like, what do you mean? Like I'm praying. They're like, why do you do that? I'm like, huh? What? Like so like it's the difference in that, and the communities out here, um like from what I'm used to and what I grew up in, and how I like apply God to my life is a lot more dependent upon being black, and um it's like I just completely different level of like spirit when like you do always kind of have the worst rooting for you, and like uh just everything is not equal, and when talking to someone else that just like can't really see things from the way that you see it because they've never been through those things, I just don't find like the want to even like take the time to be in conversations to continuously have to like explain why, because I already have to do that so much when I'm like in like a white environment, that I have to be like the spokesperson of being black, and that's the one place that I can't do it for like my Lord and Savior. So
Mhm.
yeah, that's really why I haven't found like an environment out here.
And yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That's can't even imagine how difficult that's got to be sometimes. This has been really, really awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. I'm super excited to see what we come up with.
Thank you.
Hell yeah.
Appreciate you having me, and yeah, I hopefully I represented the dogs well, and
Yes, sir.
yeah.